They call us the blue collar, the thin line between order and the chaos that's always waiting to break through. Most nights it's routine, the drunks, the noise, the lies. But every so often, the line moves. And when it does, you'd better pray we're the ones standing on your side of it.
The streets of Echo Park shimmered under a light drizzle as neon lights rippled across puddles on Sunset Boulevard. Dick Mason, a soft-spoken mechanic known for his loyalty to the LA Rams, and his longtime friend, Gene Wallace, sat in his car finishing their conversation from earlier that evening. It had been one of those easy nights, old stories, laughter, a few too many beers, and neither of them wanted to call it quits. When they finally decided to head home, Jean got into her compact sedan, following behind Dick's beat-up blue Nova since she wasn't familiar with the neighborhood. As the two cars pulled away from the curb, Jean noticed headlights behind them. A dark car had parked just as they left, and now it was following close, its high beams cutting through the mist. At first, she thought it might just be a coincidence, but after Dick changed lanes twice and the car stayed right on them, her gut told her something was wrong. They darted across the highway, trying to lose their tail, engines roaring into the empty night. When Dick exited onto a quieter road, Jean followed, hoping the pursuer would keep going. But the dark car turned too. It rolled up behind them again, headlights idling like a predator watching prey. Dick parked his Nova at the edge of a dead-end industrial street, stepped out, and walked toward the car. Jean's heart pounded. The street was deserted, except for the faint hum of power lines and the echo of footsteps. She rolled her window down just in time to hear Dick shout, "What's your problem, man?" The driver door opened halfway, a shadow stepping out, tall and broad-shouldered. There was a brief, muffled exchange, and then 3 flashes of light. Pop, pop, pop. Dick staggered backward, clutching his chest, falling hard onto the wet pavement. Jean screamed and ran toward him, her shoes slipping on the slick asphalt. The car sped away into the night, its taillights disappearing into the fog. She caught only a glimpse, a partial license plate that read GORAMS, and the silhouette of a man built like a linebacker.
They call us the blue collar, the thin line between order and the chaos that's always waiting to break through. Most nights it's routine, the drunks, the noise, the lies. But every so often, the line moves. And when it does, you'd better pray we're the ones standing on your side of it.
By the time police arrived, Dick Mason was gone. Detectives Larry Ambrose and Stan Chavez stood over the scene as the rain washed blood into the gutter. A single .45 shell casing gleamed near the curb. "Close range," Ambrose muttered. He knew what he was doing. Jean, wrapped in a blanket, told them everything: the pursuit, the highway, the confrontation, and that haunting detail, the plate that read, "Go Rams." At first it sounded absurd, almost ironic, that the killer might have been triggered by something as simple as football rivalry. But in a city where obsession and rage often share the same room, the theory stuck. The detectives ran the plate. Stolen. The car, a late-model Dodge Charger, had been reported missing from a dealership in Torrance 2 weeks earlier. No prints on the casing, no witnesses, no leads. Still, Ambrose couldn't shake the image of the Rams plate. "What if it wasn't random?" he said. Chavez nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's personal." Weeks later, a new lead surfaced. Surveillance footage from a gas station 2 blocks from the crime scene showed a similar car pulling in 10 minutes before the shooting. The driver, massive, in a red 49ers jacket, paid cash, kept his face down, and left after filling up. The clerk remembered him. Big guy, football type, said he was driving back to San Jose, talked about how the Rams didn't deserve their last win. When Ambrose replayed the footage frame by frame, the suspect's face turned toward the camera for a split second before static swallowed the image. The timestamp read 11:59 p.m., 1 minute before Dick Mason died. The case stalled again. Months turned into years. Gene eventually moved away, but every football season brought the memories flooding back. The chants, the colors, the noise of the stadium, all of it twisted into a cruel reminder of what she'd seen and lost.
They call us the blue collar, the thin line between order and the chaos that's always waiting to break through. Most nights it's routine, the drunks, the noise, the lies. But every so often, the line moves. And when it does, you'd better pray we're the ones standing on your side of it.
The file ended up in the cold case unit, labeled unsolved. But one night years later, Ambrose was driving through Van Nuys when something caught his eye. A rusted red Dodge Charger sitting in the corner of an abandoned body shop. The paint was faded and the plates were gone. But as he walked closer, his flashlight caught the faint outline of a sticker long peeled away, leaving a shadow on the bumper. He brushed off the dirt, and there it was, ghostly letters that once read, "Go Rams." Ambrose stood in the rain for a long time, the sound of the city fading around him. He didn't call it in right away. Some cases don't end with handcuffs or headlines. Sometimes the truth just lingers in the dark, like a voice echoing from a car window on a wet Los Angeles street, whispering through time, "Go Rams." The driver, massive, in a red 49ers jacket, paid cash, kept his face down, and left after filling up. The clerk remembered him. Big guy, football type, said he was driving back to San Jose, talked about how the Rams didn't deserve their last win. When Ambrose replayed the footage frame by frame, the suspect's face turned toward the camera for a split second before static swallowed the image. The timestamp read 11:59 p.m., 1 minute before Dick Mason died. The case stalled again. Months turned into years. Gene eventually moved away, but every football season brought the memories flooding back. The chants, the colors, the noise of the stadium, all of it twisted into a cruel reminder of what she'd seen and lost. The file ended up in the cold case unit, labeled unsolved.
They call us the blue collar, the thin line between order and the chaos that's always waiting to break through. Most nights it's routine, the drunks, the noise, the lies. But every so often, the line moves. And when it does, you'd better pray we're the ones standing on your side of it.
A former semi-pro linebacker with a history of bar fights and unpaid parking tickets around Van Nuys. He'd been arrested in 2016 for assault, posted bail, and disappeared. Now, years later, Ambrose spotted it, the rusted Charger at the edge of a forgotten lot, a relic of another life. The paint had dulled to brownish red, the windshield shattered, the tires rotted. He moved closer, the beam of his flashlight slicing through dust and time. That's when he saw it. The faint outline of peeled vinyl letters. Go Rams. The rain had stopped by morning, but the smell of wet asphalt lingered over the city like smoke after a gunfight. Ambrose sat at his desk, eyes locked on the football keychain sealed in an evidence bag. The words, 49ers faithful, gleamed faintly under the fluorescent light, a taunt from the killer himself. Chavez entered holding the forensics report. Partial DNA, contaminated by time but still viable enough for comparison. The lab had found engine oil residue, consistent with a defunct auto shop once owned by a man named Carlo Red Mendoza, known to police for running an underground betting ring out of San Jose. Mendoza's network catered to high-rolling sports fanatics, ex-players, enforcers, and gamblers who turned team loyalty into blood sport. Ambrose stared at the file. Red Mendoza. That's our next stop by dawn. The detectives were driving north on the 5, unmarked car slicing through fog like a blade through smoke. The radio hummed low. Sports talk, a Rams post-game debate. But Ambrose shut it off. He preferred silence. In his head, he replayed the moment Mason stepped out of his car that night.
They call us the blue collar, the thin line between order and the chaos that's always waiting to break through. Most nights it's routine, the drunks, the noise, the lies. But every so often, the line moves. And when it does, you'd better pray we're the ones standing on your side of it.
A flash of gunfire, Jean's scream. He could almost hear the killer's breath, heavy and steady, like a lineman ready for impact. San Jose was colder, grayer. They stopped first at Mendoza's old garage, a gutted shell of corrugated metal surrounded by cracked pavement and weeds. The smell of burned rubber and motor oil still clung to the air. A few local cops met them there, one of them handing Chavez a folder. We've had assaults at sports bars during rivalry games. Guys in 49 air gear, all muscle, no names. One victim described the same red jacket Ambrose knelt near a charred workbench and noticed faint etching under the ash, a scratched-out license plate number that matched the engine serial from the Charger. He exhaled slowly. He was here. They traced Mendoza's last known associates through betting slips and wire transfers. Each payout led to the same group. Former semi-pro athletes blacklisted for fixing games. They called themselves the Faithful Crew, a twisted homage to the 49ers slogan. Ambrose and Chavez tracked one name to a dive bar on the city's south end, the End Zone Tavern. Inside, the walls were plastered with 49ers memorabilia, the air thick with cigarette smoke and stale beer. The game replayed on the screen as Ambrose flashed his badge. "We're looking for Frank D'Angelo." The bartender froze. His eyes flicked to a framed photo behind the bar, a team shot of men in red jackets, their faces blurred by years of nicotine haze. One face stood out, tank-like build, cold stare. D'Angelo. "He hasn't been around in a while," the bartender muttered. "But Red still bets big. Every season opener, he talks about finishing what the Rams fans started." Ambrose felt a chill. They left the bar and drove to a rundown warehouse district where the betting ring was rumored to meet. The night air carried the buzz of generators and muffled laughter. Through a gap in the loading dock, they saw men crowded around screens, cash changing hands, bottles clinking. On one monitor, a replay of a Rams 49ers game froze on a hit, helmet to helmet, two players colliding violently. The crowd inside cheered. Then Ambrose saw him. Frank "Tank" D'Angelo, older now, heavier, but unmistakable. A 49ers jacket still clung to his shoulders like a uniform. Ambrose reached for his radio, whispering to Chavez, "We got him." But before backup arrived, a siren wailed nearby, startling the gamblers. D'Angelo turned, eyes meeting Ambrose's through the narrow slit of the door. Recognition flickered, and then he bolted through the back exit. The detectives chased him into the rain-slick alley. Tires screeched. A black SUV roared to life and fishtailed away, taillights vanishing into the fog. Chavez fired a flare gun into the air, marking the direction. They followed for 3 miles before finding the SUV abandoned under an overpass. The driver's seat was empty, door swinging in the wind. But on the dashboard, duct-taped for all to see, was a single Rams ticket stub, dated the night Dick Mason was murdered. Ambrose stood in silence, the city noise fading again into memory. The case that began with a slogan had become something bigger, a web of revenge, money, and obsession woven into the bones of California football culture. As the rain returned, he looked toward the dark horizon. "This isn't over," he said quietly.